Me and my friend Dylan, we would always hang out after school, maybe once or twice a week. And one day in particular, we decided we would go to his house for a sleepover. The only reason we've decided this was because I was at his house, I think 2 weeks ago or so, and all we did was watch movies that night. I think we saw the movie District 9 and a couple of the Saw movies, which were quite disturbing, especially for 12 or 13-year-olds, I think we were at the time. So fast forward a few weeks later, we decide, hey, let's do that again. That was fun, but this time let's watch a few more movies and let's have a sleepover at the same time. That day, after school, both Dylan and I walked over to my house. We decided we'd come here just to have a quick dinner and chill in my room for a bit before we headed off to his house. His mom wasn't working that day, but she was out into the city trying to get some groceries for us, a little bit of food so that we could have sometime around midnight while we watched movies and have some fun. We were young at the time, so we didn't really think much of it. At my house, after about a few hours after having dinner, the sun began to set and I started wondering when we would start heading over to Dylan's house. He lived quite far away actually. I would say maybe a 15-minute drive from my house or probably a 40-minute to 50-minute walk. I was expecting his mom to come pick us up, but that never happened. The sun was setting further and further and the light began to dim at a very rapid pace. My mom at the time was at work and she had the car, the only car that we had in our family. Even if it was still here, I couldn't drive because I was too young to begin with. Didn't even have my license at the time. My dad was here, however, with no car in sight because my mom had it. There was really no way for us to go up to his house. Dylan's mom still wasn't back from grabbing groceries. We don't know where she was. He didn't have a phone on him. He was too young at the time, so he had no way of contacting her. And as a matter of fact, I don't even know if she knew he was at my house. At that point, Dylan said we should just walk to his house. And being young, adventurous at the time, I decided, you know what, let's do it. So after what I would say was about 4 hours at my house, after playing some games like Prince of Persia, after chilling, just talking, we ended up leaving the house and walking towards his house. Nothing too exciting happened for the first 20 or so minutes of the walk. We were in what seemed like a normal neighborhood. Gradually, getting further and further, the houses began to thin out. When we reached the halfway point, there were very few houses. It was sparse, open fields, and just trees all around. This is normal though. I knew that Dylan lived quite far out into a place called the Res. So, with him by my side and the sun almost at the very bottom, it was getting very dark. But I felt safe, I felt normal, nothing seemed out of place. But when we reached the 30-minute mark, it was almost dead of night. You can start seeing the stars out in the sky, the sunlight almost completely dim and gone, without a trace. We were on the road at that point, making our way towards his house. I think from there we had maybe 15 or 20 minutes left to go, but it was pitch black at that point almost, and it just felt a little eerie, a little ominous. Not right. You wouldn't really see cars pass by because to begin with there are very few houses out there, very few stores, so no one would really drive by, no one would really walk by. So it was just us, the woods, the sound of the night, and the black, shiny sky. After about 5 minutes, we started talking, and I would always make these jokes like, hey, what if out of nowhere you just saw the Chainsaw Massacre, the chainsaw guy, the guy with the chainsaw just coming out of the woods right from the left of us? What would you do? And he would laugh. He would always say stuff like that. Like, what if this happened? What if that happened? And it would always be oh crap, we should get out of here. We should run. But after not too long, as we were walking, we saw a random shadow, I think it was. To this day, I don't really know what it was exactly, but it was a silhouette in front of us. Something that was gradually getting closer and closer and closer. Both Dylan and I stopped in our tracks and were staring at it. Dylan's very familiar with the area. He's walked in around the area several times in a week. He lived here all his life, so he knew the area in and out. This was all foreign to me, so I was a little bit scared when I saw the figure. So it frightened me a little bit when he started walking back step by step a little bit. And I was saying, hey, like, what's going on? He whispered beneath his breath and said, shit, I think that's a wolf. Scared, I just started walking forward for some reason. I'm not sure why. Step after step, I just said, come on, let's just go. Just go. If it's a wolf anyways, like, what can we do? Out of nowhere, this shadowy figure came closer and closer, and it was very tall. It was definitely not a wolf. Still too far away to make out. I couldn't tell. It was still pitch black, mind you. You couldn't see more than 5 to 10 feet away from you. The silhouette got closer and closer to the point where it just passed us. When it got close enough, you couldn't really discern it. You couldn't tell what it was. I didn't know if it was a man, if it was an animal, or an object of some sort, something paranormal, something supernatural that no one's ever seen before. It just passed through us. I can't explain what it was. I can't explain how it felt or what I'm trying to even talk about. I don't know how else to explain it. It was just a shadowy silhouette that just passed right through us. Shocked. The two of us just stood there and we're like, what the hell just happened? Without putting much thought into it, we just continued walking, but in silence, down the very long, at this point, dreadful road. Woods, trees, everything you can imagine nature-wise, both left and right from us. But nothing modern, no houses in sight, no stores, no people. It's just the dead of night with nature surrounding us, walking straight on a road. We eventually reached the T-intersection of that road, where if you take a left, you'd be taken somewhere where I don't even know where it was. But if you went a right, you'd kind of begin to make it to Dylan's house. Let's say 5 minutes or so from now, we would make it if we took that right. We continued walking silently, but in the back of our minds, I knew that we were thinking about that silhouette. Occasionally we would hear a sound and we would look behind us as we walked towards Dylan's house. I think at that point a vision's away from us. Nothing was there. After about 5 more minutes of walking, we reached the house finally. The very memorable figure, a very happy figure at that point for me, stood right in front of me. The house was pitch black though, no one was there. And that kind of worried me. Where was Dylan's mom? She was just supposed to go out shopping, gather some food for us, and I expected her to pick us up, but that never happened. So where was she? Was she okay? Dylan paid no mind to this. He just continued on his life as though nothing had ever happened, though I knew he was also shocked and a little bit worried by the things we'd experienced. That silhouette that just went right through us. Dylan took a key out of his pocket and put it right into the door of his home, turned it, unlocked the door, and opened the door for us to go in. At this point, anxiety started kicking in for me. I had this knot in my stomach, butterflies, as some people would say, and an unease of, damn, I just wanted to go home. It's the only thing that was rushing through my mind at that point. I didn't feel comfortable anymore. For some reason, that silhouette, that walk towards the house, and all these unknowns, these questions that I had no answer to, just kept going on replay in my mind. We got to Dylan's room, which just so happened to be in the basement to make things even better for me. And I sat on his couch, and he just said, okay, what movie shall we watch? I started to make some excuses like, oh, I should have taken some pills, like I have a really throbbing knee pain. Damn it, I forgot to take that pill before I came here. I feel like I might have to go home. But he said his mom would come back any time and potentially drive me back home if she wasn't too tired. We sat there for what was maybe 10-15 minutes deciding on what movie to watch, and then eventually the lights went out. For some reason that didn't scare me, that didn't panic me. I feel like, given the things we've experienced before, that was just a normal little mishap, a normal little inconvenience that we'd experienced. Dylan and I both walked in the basement, the eerie night in the background, Silence. That's all we heard. Walking towards the power box, we opened it. But everything was okay. Nothing was turned off. Nothing switched off. So why did the electricity go off? We started flicking around with the switch, but everything just remained the same. Empty darkness and the silence of the night. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a minute or two, the lights suddenly turned on, but not just the ones that were on before. All the lights turned on. And then the front door, started to rattle a bit. Someone was here, and someone was trying to get into the house. Who was it? As Dylan walked up the stairs from the basement towards the front door again, he looked through the peephole. No one was there. But the door kept rattling. Was someone at the front door kneeling down trying to open the door so that they would be out of sight? But wait, that doesn't make sense. There are windows on both sides of the door. So even if someone was kneeling down, we would still be able to see them despite it being dark outside. Not to mention, all the lights were on again, including the ones outdoors, so we would definitely see someone from the outside. No one was there. But the door continued to rattle. Both Dylan and I scared at this point. We quickly rushed upstairs to the kitchen, and we just stood there in shock, scared, not sure what to do. We've already experienced a crap ton of stuff to this point. The initial walk to his house in the darkness, the eerie figure passing right through us on the roads, the silent and creepy walk to the remainder of his house from there, the lights going off, the lights going back on again, and now the door trying to get itself open with no one there. We're confused at this point, scared, my anxiety going through the roof. I'm literally scared at this point, feeling like I wanted to throw up. After, I would say, 5 minutes of just standing there in the kitchen in absolute silence and stillness, with nothing but the dead of night behind us, the lights brimming hot and bright, the door opened. There was no key turning. There was no fiddling with it. The door just opened. And the person who walked through was Dylan's mom. I never felt so much happiness before when I saw that. Confused and happy at the same time. Both Dylan and I said, "Hey, where were you?" She said right back to us. She was in the shops, many shops actually in the city, trying to get us food, but then she ended up going to her mother's house as well. She left her phone in the house as well, which we didn't even notice, but that didn't matter because none of us had phones to begin with. She assumed that we would walk here straight from school, that we would not take the trip here directly at night. But given how young we were and everything, we decided, screw it. Let's just do it, let's just walk, which at this point we regretted. We told her about the happenings, about the silhouette that passed through us on the way here. She was confused. She'd never heard of that or seen that to begin with. We also told her about the lights, which she wasn't confused about. She said, and Dylan in a way could attest to it, that the power box has been a little bit finicky lately, turning on and off randomly, but it was still strange given all the stuff that had happened before. But then one thing worried her, Dylan's mom, myself and Dylan himself. Who was trying to open the door? Or I think it's even more accurate to say, what was trying to open Dylan's door? We just stood there talking about it, pondering the possibilities, eventually dismissing it to the wind, even though it wasn't really windy outside, but what else can you say? Eventually I just asked if I can go home. I just felt too uneasy. I didn't want to stay here, and I definitely did not want to walk back alone, so I asked if his mom can just drive me home. I didn't feel good. I gave the same excuse of my knee hurting, so I should go back home and take my pills. She agreed. So after about 5 to 10 minutes, we walked back into her car. She drove me back home, and I went right into my room and just lied in bed, thinking about what had gone down. In a way, kind of worried for Dylan that he had to stick around there, because it was strange. To this day, I think about what that silhouette was that went right through us and what was trying to get into the house. The door was locked at the time, but what if it wasn't unlocked? Is it a spirit, something paranormal? I don't know. And to this day, that's kind of the main reason why I would never want to live in a very isolated place with open fields and nothing but the woods to provide me with company. It was scary just living out in the darkness. Beautiful at times, yes, I can see that, and I agree even to this day, but living in such an environment always would worry me, especially given the things that we had gone through that night. So my advice to you now, if you're listening, if you ever have to walk long distances in the woods, probably do it in a car. Don't walk, or at least have a flashlight and a group of friends with you to make it a little bit more enjoyable, because if it's just you or one or another person, things can happen. Either your imagination can play games on you, or something literally could happen.